time today. What is up, everybody? It is Sunday night. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We are back with a vengeance. This is episode 19, season 2. We got one more in the bag next week. Yeah. But right now, we'd like to introduce a very special guest tonight. Vic Cundiff. I hope I said that right.
You did.
All right, that's one for me.
Hey, congrats.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for being here. Now, for the viewing audience at home, Vic Cundiff, he has a wonderful podcast. He actually has, I believe, 4 podcasts, Vic.
I do. Yeah, 4.
Oh, that we have 1 and it's chaos. How could you manage 4?
It gets interesting.
But the big one we're gonna focus on tonight is the Dogmen Encounters Radio. I know it's on YouTube. Now, do you have a web page for this, or is it like a Facebook page for it?
There is a web page for it, dogmenencounters.com, and if you visit the website, it'll let you know that you can listen to the show using your favorite podcast app as well. More people listen that way via podcast format than via YouTube, so it makes it really easy. You can pick your poison and listen however you want to.
All right. And for the viewing audience, by the way, I have listened to Dogmen Encounters Radio feverishly, and it is good information. Now, I believe some people would recognize our show, Return to the Blue Gate, where we talked about encountering a dogman. So Vic here would be a good source of information for the King and I, for the next time we happen to encounter one of these things. So, Vic, how long has Dogman and Sasquatch interested you?
Wow, ever since I could understand words. Well, maybe not so much so with Dogman, but with Sasquatch. I mean, as soon as I was able to read books and understand the English language, basically, I've had a huge interest in things that go bump in the night right from the beginning. I don't know why it is. It's just how I'm wired. And I think because of that, that's one of the reasons I've been drawn to the whole Dogman phenomenon. What interested me so much with Sasquatch, when I found out about Dogmen, it was just magnified by 10, probably. Every aspect was just magnified by a factor of 10. They're more frightening. They're more secretive. It seems like they're more, you just name it, and they're more. So I guess it's only natural that I would grow to be more focused on them than Sasquatch. Well, let me qualify that. Back when I found out about, or I started to find out about all the encounters that eyewitnesses were having with these guys, with dogmen, I thought to myself, you know what? If you have a Sasquatch encounter that you need help with, you can almost go to your local grocery store and find someone to help you. But if you have an encounter with one of these guys, a dogman, where do you go? Who do you talk with about it? So I thought, you know what? There's a real need here. Well, down the road, not too long down the road from that, I started putting the pieces in place to create dogmenencounters.com, and basically a way for people to find me who had encounters. And then not too long after that, about a year, I started the show, Dogmen Encounters Radio, and the rest is history. Thousands and thousands of eyewitnesses later, Dogmen eyewitnesses, here we are.
Well, how many episodes do you think you've done so far on Dogmen Encounters Radio?
Well, last night I aired episode 552, so it's been quite a few.
That is quite a few. I am behind then.
Yeah, sounds like you need to catch up then.
Yeah, I think I'm on like 400. 422, I think was the last one I listened to. So I'm a little bit behind then.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's all right. I work. I'll catch up during the week.
It's funny you mentioned that. I'll go through the comments. Somebody will leave a comment for a show that aired 8-9 years ago, and they act like it's something that aired just yesterday or whatever. I'm thinking, well, you gotta understand, it's been a long time since that episode aired. I mean, the last question is like, well, I was listening to episode 15, and I was wondering if you could tell me blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, well, it's been so long. I mean, I've literally spoken with thousands upon thousands of eyewitnesses since then. There's no way to keep all the facts straight for me to have a prayer answering your question.
Yeah. Now, and we talked before the show began that you're not exactly a field researcher, which, by the way, there is nothing wrong with not being a field researcher, that you do most of the interviews. That's still, in our book, that makes you a researcher, makes you knowledgeable because you are listening to other people. You're talking about them. You're getting the information, behavioral patterns of them, I guess you would say. Would you say, out of all the shows, how many would you say would be a violent encounter?
Very few. If you consider a violent encounter one to be an encounter where the dogman actually made physical contact, yeah, I mean, very, very few would check that box off. I mean, over the years, I've been doing this. Out of all the thousands and thousands of eyewitnesses I've spoken with, only 7, 8, maybe 9 of those eyewitnesses ever reported to me, credible eyewitnesses that is, ever reported being touched by the dogman or dogmen that they encountered. So it's really, really few and far between where you're actually talking about a dogman trying to harm someone.
Okay. Now, some people would say that a Sasquatch would be just a North American ape. In your own opinion, how would you classify a dogman? Because, I mean, you said it before, there's really not a lot of resources for a dogman. I think the time that it really got popular was the Beast of Bray Road. And I forgot what her name is that reported on that one off the top of my head. But, I mean, where would... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that was Linda Godfrey.
There we go. So many people out there that do these studies. So, I mean, in your opinion, would you say these would be they could be compared to a werewolf? They could be compared to like a natural cryptid? I mean, what would your take and feeling on that one be?
Well, there are a lot of trails that go off in different directions when it comes to these guys. I've spoken with so many credible eyewitnesses who've reported witnessing these guys doing things that point soundly towards them being just flesh and blood creatures that are out there in the forests trying to scratch out a living. And then I've also, on the other hand, spoken with tons and tons of other credible eyewitnesses who've reported seeing them do things that a normal flesh and blood being wouldn't be able to do. So, I mean, it's when you do what I do, it's just natural that you bounce back and forth from one moment you're convinced that they have to be just flesh and blood creatures, and then the next moment you're convinced that they must be ethereal beings to be able to do the things that they do. So I really can't answer for sure definitively what they are. The breadcrumbs looking at canine type dogmen, there are 2 types of cryptids out there that are commonly referred to as being dogmen. You've got what I call canine type that have dog-like legs with stifle joints and hocks instead of knees and ankles the way we have. And then you've got type 3s. some people call type 3s a type 3 Sasquatch, but yeah, they can't be a type of Sasquatch when you look at their anatomy. For example, type 3s all have claws on the tips of their fingers, and
Okay.
every tooth in their head is sharp. Well, every Sasquatch has fingernails, every Sasquatch has toenails. Well, that right there is an anatomical feature of a primate, of a hominid. Well, hominids, they do not have claws on the tips of their fingers. Hominids can have, or primates can have, sharp canine teeth. I mean, look at gorillas, look at chimpanzees. They can have sharp canine teeth, but the teeth directly behind those canines, which are called post-canine teeth, in a primate, they are never sharp. They're never sharp. They're blunt like ours. Well, every tooth, like I said, in the type 3's head is sharp. Their post-canine teeth are sharp. So that right there precludes the chance of them possibly being a type of Sasquatch. What they are, what a type 3 is, I can't tell you. All I can tell you is what they're not. And the anatomical features clearly point towards the fact that they are not a type of Sasquatch.
Yeah, I've from what I've seen with the reports, they've all got that. They've been compared to like a German Shepherd snout. Now, like Bigfoot, you've got the ones with the face is more of a Neanderthal. You've got ones that look more like a gorilla style. So that goes kind of along the lines of the type 1, 2, 3 Dogmen that you've been talking about. James, you want to ask him?
No, go ahead. I've
Okay.
got something. Yeah.
Okay. So I put up a picture of the two different styles here that I was able to find. So would you say that the one on the left's hair would be like the type 1 with those knees that are bent backwards like a canine?
Well, I don't know what a type 1 dogman is supposed to be. I call the types with digitigrade leg structures, like the one on the left, I call those canine type dogmen. And then the one on the right, it appears to have hominid style legs, which would normally make it a type 3, but the head is all wrong for being a type 3. That head is a canine type dogman head. So yeah, that's just an AI creation that kind of mixes and matches anatomical features. But yeah, I mean, type 3s, they have a lot of different variants, just like with canine type dogmen. With canine types, you have there are variants that have heads that look like a hyena. Some have heads that look like just an totally unassuming timber wolf. Others have heads that look like the werewolf from the Underworld series, and on and on and on. Well, with type 3s, you've got a variant that has a head that looks pretty much like a baboon. You've got a variant that looks like the werewolf from An American Werewolf in London. You've got another type of variant that looks pretty much identical to a Sasquatch, except it does have a muzzle. And on that side, on and on and on. So there are a bunch of variants on both sides.
Okay. I mean, like you said earlier, we're preparing for our next Bigfoot expedition, and I told you when we were off the air on your show last time that we had a Dogman encounter. For the people at home, I'll make it quick because it was really only James, about a 10-minute encounter?
Yeah, something like that, about 10-15.
About 10-15, but we had pulled up to the Blue Gates. We were had a parabolic mirror, parabolic ear up, microphone, and we could hear something breathing and coming through the bushes at us. And we had one that was on one side of the road, and one that we had a trail cam. Let me back up. We had a trail camera up on the left-hand side of this little path, and we had to go up and get it real quick. I'm going to bring up this other picture. So as I go up the hillside, this little hillside to go get the game camera, what you see on the screen is basically what I saw back about, 20, 25 yards away. And he's just gripping some trees staring at us. I get the game camera. I back down the hillside. I run into James. And James is looking down on the other side. And what'd you say to me?
Yeah, we were being followed or stalked or something like that, right? It was
Yes.
there's something definitely there, and it was definitely an uneasy feeling.
But yeah, that was we didn't get a bluff charge or nothing. They were just kind of walking down to either side, right in the bushes, letting us know that they were there. We got in the trucks, we got out of there. Um, Now we need to know more about Dogmen because of the fact that this is our prime Sasquatch habitat that we go to. This is the area we found nests, we found tracks, we found busted up elk bones that were recently chewed on. This is the place where we go is our bread and butter for Sasquatch research. I mean, we've seen the family, we've been chased out, we've had rocks thrown at us. 5 years, this place has never disappointed. But the Dogman is kind of one of those, okay, we need to be better prepared for anything else. I mean, we have black bear, we have cougar, we know we have squatch. We don't have the big male that is in that area. He's up over the mountain ridge in the next valley. We've got eyewitnesses for that guy. But yeah, we need to know more about Dogman so that we can be better prepared for what we're after.
Well, understand that. I mean, it's kind of like window dressing if you consider preparing for them, because they can elude you like it's going out of style. If they don't want you to see them, you're never going to sniff them. They know you're in the forest before you do. And if one takes it upon itself to actually try to harm you, oops, I'm going to mute the mic. I've got a coughing break coming up. Sorry about that. If one gets it in its head that it wants to harm you, then yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can do to stop that. People talk about taking guns out into the woods, but I've got no doubt that if you actually have a gun with a Dogman present, the odds of you being harmed are actually higher than if you didn't have a gun, because odds are you're going to do something with that gun that's going to anger it, fail to protect yourself, and wind up causing it to get mad enough at you to actually push it further to the point where it either takes you out or hurts you pretty bad.
Yeah, now I know we pack pistols in there, but that's mostly just because we do have cougar, we do have black bear. We're not out in the business for killing anything or hurting anything if possible.
No.
But I mean, I used to live in Montana. We had grizzly bear, black bear, cougars, moose, and we were always told, yeah, you take a gun with you. Hopefully, you never have to use it. But if you get a bluff charge, just go for the bang bang off to the side, give it that warning shot, let them know that hey, you don't want to mess with this. There's other ways to deal with these animals. Black bear, you just make a lot of noise, it'll go away if it's hears you before you hear it. Cougar, you just try to look bigger, but there's always that 1% chance that that bluff charge, or they're not going to respond to how you're doing. Hey, I don't want anything, I don't want no smoke here. Yeah, it's never in our interest to, if we never have to fire a round, I think we'll be happy, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I would say with ours, we didn't get the bluff charge. I think what had happened was when we had come off the bigger hill, when we came off the summit, we had stopped for lunch at the Blue Gate. So we had food. We were making noise. We were just kind of, we weren't doing an investigation for squatch or anything else. We just stopped because it was a good area to sit down, have a lunch. So my personal belief is these dogmen just happened to have been in the neighborhood, smelled the food, heard us making a commotion, and just wanted to come check us out.
Yeah, that might be the case, but These guys don't have any trouble feeding themselves at all. I mean, if you think mountain lions earned the appellation deer killing machine, these guys make mountain lions look like rank amateurs. They really do. So, yeah, they might have smelled your camp and everything, but I seriously doubt that they were drawn in because they thought, oh, a meal, isn't that great? I really don't think that's the case. I could be wrong about that. I mean, I don't have a dog man in a cage to know for sure from having done all sorts of experiments on one, but yeah, I mean, I don't think these guys walk around hungry. I definitely don't.
No, with the elk population, I don't think it was so much we had food and it was a free meal. I think it was what are these noisy neighbors up to now? So like if my neighbors were making a lot of commotion, I'd go outside to take a look and see what's going on. I think that's basically what had happened was they were passing through, heard a lot of commotion, and just wanted to poke their heads out at me like, okay, what's going on now?
Oh, I see. That makes sense. Yeah, you're probably right.
No, like, I mean, when we do our Squatch investigations in this area, I mean, we have taken a pound of bacon up onto the summit and fried up a lot of bacon, just basically trying to get a smell out there just to see what we could attract. We go to a Sasquatch festival up in Longview, Washington called Squatch Fest. And some of the bigger names in the community were saying, yeah, if you really want to attract a Bigfoot in, play like you're a camper. You're just a dumb hiker. You're out for the day. Make a meal, do some barbecuing. They're not going to come into your camp and be like, hey, guys, what's going on? Can I get a burger? But they're going to come around to the ends and maybe just in the woods and be like staring out and going, okay, what's going on? What are these dumbass humans doing now?
Yeah, well, they don't have any TVs, so you are the TV. That does make sense.
I mean, we have been stalked by Bigfoot a lot. The area that we go to we found several nesting sites where if we follow, we've had the kill zone where all the elk have been getting whacked, which was an interesting one. But I got to back up to a little story. Before we started getting into this research heavily, I was at the local Fred Meyer's. I was checking out. It was self-checkout, and this little old lady was in front of me at the next kiosk. And I didn't have a Bigfoot shirt on. I didn't have anything like that. I mean, I've got a few tattoos of Bigfoot on my arm. And I think maybe she saw that, but she looks at me and she goes, so did you know that the local Bigfoot and the local Dogmen are having a turf war? And I kind of looked at her and I was like, I'm sorry, what? She goes, yeah, the Dogmen and the Bigfoot, they're fighting over a territory right now. And my house is up by it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Try to finish checking out real quick because I'm like, yeah, I've got a line up behind me. I tried to find the lady again and she paid for her stuff and was just gone. So in your research, would you believe that maybe there would be a rivalry between the two? I mean, I've heard some accounts of them like being best buddies and hanging out and watching each other's back, but I've also heard other accounts of, it's just a big old turf war going on.
Well, normally these guys don't hang out in numbers. At least that's my opinion. It just wouldn't make sense for that to be the case. And I'll tell you why. While Sasquatch are clearly omnivores, they can make a living anywhere. In the wintertime, when there aren't any vegetables, there's no vegetation for them to feed on, they can always just kill deer and other game to subsist. Well, with dogmen being obligate carnivores, they're kind of locked into a different situation. They have to exist in areas where there's going to be game, the resources in that area are going to be plentiful enough to support them. Well, if you just take one dog man that's mature, it's going to have a ridiculous daily caloric requirement. Okay, well, if you have 2 or 3 or 4 or more hanging out in any one particular area, those daily caloric requirements of the whole group are going to be ridiculous. So what you're looking at is, if they do hang out in numbers like that, then almost overnight, they're going to deplete the resources in that area to the point where they've killed the area. They can't circle back to it later on. And well, eventually other game is going to funnel back into that area, but it's probably going to take some time. But it would just make a lot more sense for them to hang out alone because of those the daily caloric requirements that they have. It just would make more sense for them to just hang out in a particular area for a certain period of time and then move on before they've depleted the resources in that area, so that when the time comes, when they want to, they can circle back into that area later on and hang out there again for a certain period of time and just operate over a large home range, the same way a grizzly would or a mountain lion would. That's why grizzlies and mountain lions do the same thing. They operate over a huge home range, because if they didn't, they would deplete their resources in those areas, and they know that. So yeah, that's the story behind that. Now, as far as them getting along with Sasquatch, yeah, I think normally they get along like oil, or they mix like oil and water. But yeah, I've had credible eyewitnesses contact me too and tell me that they actually saw a dogman hanging out with a Sasquatch clan. So apparently, at least from time to time, it does happen where these guys do come together, but I really do think that's the exception instead of the rule.
Okay. Well, I know our region that we've had our encounters. We've done the Bigfooting. You mentioned Bigfoot being omnivore. So, I mean, if we follow the food source, just above our ridge that we do all of our investigations is an elk refuge. So there's like 700 elk that are just make this place their home. So, I mean, you've got your 700 head of elk that tend to wander into our Bigfoot's region. You got black-tailed deer. You've got, coyotes. I mean, you got a lot of food and game that could feed a lot of big game animals. I mean, like our Bigfoot, we know for a fact that we can confirm our little pod or family unit is at four members that hang out in that area. 2 females and their 2 juveniles. The big male has his own separate territory that he wanders around in. So if we go with Dogmen wandering, having a wider circumference, not really such a set area, and because the fact that we haven't seen this in 5 years of going out up and down the ridge line and the mountains and everything else, I mean, we've never seen them. So I could understand why they would have a wider range. So, as you said, not deplete the food source. So, I mean, that's a good thought process there. I like it.
Well, just so no one gets me wrong, I'm not saying that they never do hang out in numbers, because apparently they do. I mean, they do have to breed after all, or it would seem like they'd have to breed if they're not supernatural beings. But yeah, I mean, from time to time, I'll have a very credible eyewitness contact me and tell me about seeing a number of them together. I don't know how that operates, how that works, how often they do that, but it happens apparently. So I just wanted to put that out there. I don't want someone to listen to this and think I'm saying that they never do come together and never do exist in numbers, because yeah, I'm not saying that.
Right. But I mean, to kind of back that up a little bit, I can kind of see what you're talking about, because I mean, let's take a wolf pack. When they go hunting, you got your strongest members that are out hunting. The weakest members would probably be back in the den. The younger members of the pack would be back in their den. So just a wild theory off the top of my head. What if it's two dogmen that we had seen were kind of like out hunting on its own with the youngins left in a den somewhere? I mean, that's just not saying it really happened. Just chaos ensues, top of my head.
Yeah, that could be the case, but when people have asked me about that before, the whole hanging out by themselves versus in a group, I tell them that wolves do that out of necessity. Coyotes hang out in groups in a pack out of necessity. Pretty much anything that coyotes or wolves are going to take down. I mean, coyotes do dispatch chickens and other small game from time to time, but with wolves, it's almost always larger game that requires numbers for them to dispatch. Elk and other game like that, it's going to require cooperation. With dogmen, though, I mean, anything they want to take down, they can by themselves. They don't need help. They've got the strength, the speed, the implements of destruction, i.e. their claws and teeth. I mean, they've got everything they need to dispatch anything they come across by themselves. So there's no requirement to hang out in numbers. And if they are together in numbers, it's actually a disadvantage instead of an advantage, the way it would be with most other canids.
Right. Well, I know with our encounter, there wasn't a pungent smell like the Bigfoot tends to put off from time to time. We've been hit with the Squatch smell, and it is quite rancid. So going off of in your opinion, how big do you think they would get overall muscle mass, weight? The one that I had seen, because we didn't see the other one, it was in the bush pretty good. It was hiding very well. I want to say he was about 8 feet tall, maybe 8.5 feet tall, probably 600 pounds. I mean, he wasn't huge muscular like the one on the picture on the left-hand side here. Sorry, I have the dog at my face. In your opinion, how big, weight-wise, height-wise, would you say you got from all the interviews you've done?
Something I've noticed over the years there, Darren, is when I hear eyewitnesses talk about Sasquatch they saw, dogmen they saw, then go on to estimate their weights, in almost every case, it sounds to me like they're way off with their estimate. And I'll tell you why. There's a scientific principle called square cube law. And square cube law states that if you take an object and increase its size by a factor of 2 and keep it proportional, its weight is going to be multiplied by a factor of 8. To highlight this example, cough break. Sorry about that. To make it easier to understand, if you take a 1 foot tall by 1 foot deep by 1 foot wide cube that weighs 100 pounds, the material it's made out of is basically, it has a density of basically making it weigh 100 pounds per cubic foot. Okay, if you increase the size of that cube to being 2 feet tall, 2 feet wide, 2 feet front to back, i.e. 2 feet deep. Okay, yeah, you just doubled the size of the cube, but its weight has been multiplied by a factor of 8. And it's easy to break that down and understand why. You would have, if you wanted to take 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot cubes to make a 2 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot cube, how would you do it? You would take 2 1 foot by 1 foot cubes, stick them side by side, and then stack another 2 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot cubes on top of that pair. Then you've got 4, and then you would take another 2, put it right behind that stack, and then put another 2 on top of that rear stack. Now you've got 8 blocks, 8 cubes that are 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot. Again, each one of those cubes that are 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot weigh 100 pounds. So 100 times 8 is 800. If you take, to further flesh this out, if you take something like a Great Dane, which can be,
Right.
they can come in around 36 inches at the withers. Well, a Great Dane, a male Great Dane that's 36 inches at the withers, a big male, it's not uncommon for them to be 200 pounds. Well, if you double their height, okay, to being 72 inches at the withers, twice the height, well, it's not that uncommon for a horse that's 72 inches at the withers to weigh, guess how much? 200 times 8, 1,600 pounds. Now, again, square cube law states that if you keep everything proportional, that's the key right there. Great Danes are similar in form to horses, but they're not identical. So you are going to have variances there. But what I'm getting at is square cube law does work. It is a proven scientific principle. And if you take a 6 foot tall man who's 200 pounds and increase his size to being 12 feet tall, keep him proportional, well, he's going to weigh 1,600 pounds. Well, Dogmen, I mean, I've spoken with plenty of eyewitnesses who've reported seeing a 12-footer having an encounter with a 12-foot Dogman. Well, they're a lot more robust than a man is going to be. So, yeah, if you look at a 12-foot Dogman, they're going to be thicker, they're going to be wider, their arms are going to look a lot more robust than any 6 foot tall man that's been increased in size to that height. So that means that they're going to weigh, a 12-footer is going to weigh even more than 1,600 pounds. So just food for thought, something to think about. I mean, they might be well over 2,000 pounds. But 12 feet, I mean, that's close to freeway overpass height. That is a big creature.
Yeah, definitely. That was not what I saw was not 12-footer. James, you got anything you want to throw out there?
Just going back to the home ranging thing, the Dogmen's territory, or when you've spoken to other people, is there any area in specific that they tend to congregate in, certain areas?
It would be nice if you could say that, okay, yeah, if you don't want to have a Dogman encounter, avoid this type of area, because that's the type of area they prefer. But I can't do that because these guys, I mean, it seems like they just go where they want to go. You can find them anywhere, including well within the city limits of major metropolitan areas. I mean, there have been credible eyewitnesses who've reported seeing them within the city limits of, how about Dallas, Cincinnati, Boston, New York City, Chicago, and the list goes on and on. So it seems like they definitely do go where they want to go, when they want to go there. There have been credible eyewitnesses. There was a police officer who was sitting there in his house reading the newspaper one afternoon during the week. He had the day off, and most cops, they don't get the weekend off. They're off during the week. Well, he's sitting there reading the newspaper, sipping on his coffee, when all of a sudden he sees motion through the window on the front wall of the living room, looks out that window to see what that motion was, and he sees this werewolf-looking thing that's walking up the middle of the street. It's broad daylight. It's mid-afternoon. Everyone on that cul-de-sac that he lived on was at work or at school. They were gone. Well, yeah, the Dogman had been walking from the busy part of the neighborhood towards the actual cul-de-sac's head. And there was a cornfield back behind the houses at the end of that cul-de-sac. So, yeah, apparently that Dogman had been deeper into that cop's neighborhood than where he lived, halfway down that cul-de-sac. So that's just a testament to the fact that these guys go where they want to go. They do what they want to do. And if you have a problem with that, then, I mean, they'll tell you that the complaint department's open. So, yeah, that's a you problem, not a them problem. They don't have any problems dealing with complaints. But, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of canards out there about these guys. One of the biggest canards is that if you have a dog man hanging around your home, put up lights. They'll never go anywhere around lights. Well, there have been tons of credible eyewitnesses who have reported seeing a dog man in the middle of the night standing underneath a security light. It didn't have to be under that light. It was just standing under that security light. So, yeah, I mean, they go where they want to go. They do what they want to do. Do you have a problem with it? Like I said, their complaint department is open 24/7.
Well, I know James didn't get a chance to witness what I had seen. He was focused down in the stream.
Yeah, I was just trying to see, see if I could see anything. I knew something was there. I just couldn't see it. I'm kind of jealous.
So, Vic, if you had the opportunity to witness a dogman or a squatch, which would you rather see? I'm not talking up close and personal. Say, 40 yards away across the street, you're in a house, it's walking down the road. Which one of the two would you rather witness up close and personal at 40 yards? Not really up close and personal.
Yeah, I've seen dogmen so clearly that I've seen them better than most of the eyewitnesses by far that I've spoken with. I mean, to highlight that statement, explain that, I have all sorts of evidence that's shared with me over the years that's been shared, and by far and away the most compelling, the best evidence I've ever received was from a gentleman about 8-9 years ago who lived in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains. And either he or a buddy of his found out that a dogman or dogmen plural were hanging out in this area that they knew about. Well, either he or a buddy of his, it's been so long I can't remember, but either he or a buddy of his strapped this game cam to a tree trunk. Well, as you know, a more expensive game cam has the option to be set so that when it detects motion, it doesn't snap a photo, it actually starts filming. Well, this guy, he strapped that camera to a tree trunk, or one of his buddies did, and either that day that he strapped it to the tree trunk, or his buddy did, or maybe shortly after that, a day or two afterwards, this dogman, you can see this dogman clearly come into view from left to right, going for this bait that they hung on a branch that he said was 5 feet from the camera lens, and that looked to be about right. But the first thing you see is this dogman that's like a silvery gray, like a timber wolf, and then the tips of its hairs were kind of like a blackish brownish, like a coyote or some timber wolves have on their coats. There's a name for that color pattern, I forgot, but that's what it looked like coming from left to right into view. And then once it got almost right in front of the camera lens, it turned its back to the camera lens and went for the bait. And it was so close to the camera lens, I could actually pick out hairs. So yeah, you could definitely say that I know what dogmen look like. I've seen them from a closer range than pretty much almost any eyewitness I've spoken with over the years. But I was so blown away by that video. I sent that video it was a private video on YouTube that the public didn't have access to. You had to have the private URL to actually view it. But I asked the gentleman who sent me that video if he'd be okay with me sharing that video with a gentleman who was well known for analyzing Sasquatch footage. His name is Richard Eady, a really nice guy. He had actually been a guest on Dogmen Encounters not long before that gentleman sent me that video link. And when I asked for permission to share it with Richard Eady, the gentleman said, yeah, by all means. I'd love to hear what his thoughts are on it. So I said, great. Well, I contacted Richard Eady. I told him what was going on. Would you mind me sharing this link with you for this dogman footage that I think is going to blow you away, so I can get your opinion on what you think about it? And he said, well, sure. Yeah, send that URL to me. So I sent it to him, and I had him on the phone at the time when I sent the link to him. And yeah, he clicked on the link and opened up the video, and we were both watching the video at the same time. And he would notice things that were going on in that video about the dogman that I had missed. I didn't notice. I noticed some things I shared with him that he didn't pick up on. But just like with me, it blew him away. So it just cracks me up, guys, when I hear people say that they don't believe in dogmen because there is no impressive evidence out there to prove their existence. Well, yeah, just because you haven't seen the evidence, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just means that you haven't seen this evidence. That's all it means.
Right. Well, like to build off of that about not seeing the evidence, um, in our referencing back to the Blue Gate area, we have coyotes that come through, and unless you know what you're looking for, you're not going to be able to see the prints. Um, so, like when we're out there and we're tracking and we're looking for a certain set of print, we do kind of get a little laser focused on, okay, we're looking for Sasquatch specifically, and we've missed the smaller details, the smaller prints. We've missed the cougar prints. We've missed the coyote prints. So if somebody was going out in the wilderness, because a lot of times most people don't notice everything that's going on about it, yeah, they wouldn't see the prints. They wouldn't see the evidence. Most hikers, whenever they've reported Bigfoot, it's, well, we were hiking along and we weren't really paying attention, and then we smelled something, looked over, and we got it on pictures, and we were just shooting randomly. So like James and I have these new game cameras that we're going to be putting up in the Blue Gate, solar powered, cellular, send us videos. We can get alerts 24 hours a day. Hopefully we get our elusive dogmen on this, since they seem to be on the same pattern, the same feeding. They follow the elk. The Bigfoot follow the elk, and the elk are following the water and the food supply from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill. I mean, we've got elk that come out like 2 blocks away from my house, and it's a giant herd. So if we happen to get something on video, I'll have to send it to you.
With you two going out researching dogmen the way you do, I mean, that kind of makes me cringe. You're both grown men. You can do what you want to do, but what would your take be on it if a dogman happened to show up at your house that you had been researching? Just out of the blue, this dogman showed up at your back door. What would your thoughts be on that? Would that be a problem?
I would probably be a little bit freaked out, but hopefully they would understand our primary research is the Bigfoot. The Dogman was just an add-on that it's now like, you know what? If we're going out in their territory as well, we should know, okay, how are we going to, what do we need to expect if we run into these things again? Besides backing away very slowly, which was always plan number 1, back away slowly. The investigation's over. It's time to go home. Put their hands up and, hey, you know what? We're just passing through.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, that's a little different there than actively trying to research them, heading out to actually try to find a dogman. The reason why I asked you that question about how would you feel if one actually followed you home that you'd been trying to research is because I wish I could make the statement that I've never had a panicked dogman researcher contact me begging for help because a dogman they had been trying to research followed them home and decided to research them, I guess. I mean, when you've got kids and family and pets, I mean, it's as simple as pets. Some people don't have family living with them, but they have pets. And if that dogman's hanging around because you're out there researching it, very few people, when they let Fluffy out at night for the last time, keep eyes on Fluffy at all times. I mean, if that dogman has that kind of an interest in you, if you love your dog, if you have a cat you let out the door that you love, I mean, unless you have eyes on that dog or a cat, there's a high probability that the dogman's going to take out that dog. It's going to take out that cat. And even if you are watching, I mean, they're so bold, that doesn't preclude the chance that they're going to just do that right in front of your eyes. So, yeah, if you ever down the road do decide, you know what, I think we will cross that bridge and try to actually research dogmen. If you do cross that bridge, just be careful, because there is that possibility that it's going to come research you at your home.
Well, honestly, and I'll be 100% honest with this one. If we we've been doing this for 5 years with Bigfoot. If we never see another dogman again in the next 5-10 years, I'll be happy with that.
Exactly.
It's not high on the list. It's very low on the list of things I want to run into, things I want to play with out there. When we go out there and we're setting up the game cameras and, we're trying to converse with the Squatch family, that's who we want to get to know, because 5 years, all the encounters we've had with these females and the juveniles, that's who we want to foster a relationship with. That's who we want to do the research on. We want to get to know them better. Hopefully, if we go back to Dogmen having a wider range, because we've been doing this for 5 years, and this was the first in 5 years that we happened upon one or two of them. Maybe that they're back. They've cycled through. They've hit this area. Now they're going out wider, and then it'll be another year, 17, hopefully, until we see them again.
Well, goes without saying, I hope you never do see one again.
Yeah, I'll throw the picture back up, because this is kind of what I saw. This is probably AI. It's probably a movie set, but this is roundabout what it looked like. And it was just staring at us. This was cool and everything. After I calmed down and James calmed down and we got back in the car and we drove out of there at the speed of sound and windows up, and nope, we don't need to look for Bigfoot anymore. We're done for the day.
Yeah, I bet they did, get your motor running.
Well, it was something different. Like I said, we've seen the Squatch. We've smelled the Squatch. We've had the Squatch throw things in front of us, around us. I'm not saying we have a good relationship with the Squatch family, but they're not trying to get rid of us. They're curious about us. We don't go in there, we don't flash weapons. I tell people, don't bring any rifles. If you're bringing a pistol, try to have it hidden a little bit. Let's just look like hikers, go in, see what we can learn. But the Dogman was just one of those rare occurrences in a place that just seems it has never let us down with research. And this is one of those things where we need to learn from the experience of others. Hopefully never to have to use that knowledge from others. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I hope that never does happen too. Yeah, there's life before you have an encounter with the Dogman, and the life after, definitely.
Yeah, this is when we go up there, when we put these game cameras up, and we're just gonna, put them where they can get some good sun. They can just sit there, And this is also another way that we can monitor the area 24/7, 365. Not have to worry about going up and changing batteries or memory cards. It all streams to your phone. And then that maybe with this thing, say the Dogmen have a different cycle, say they're every 8 months. Every 8 months they happen to come through, then we can get them on there. We can say, okay, every June, the Bigfoot go away, Dogmen come through, so we won't go up in June.
Just something to keep in mind. If you do happen to come across a situation where you capture one of these guys, a dogman, on film, if you think the government is going to do everything they can do to prevent the existence of Sasquatch being proven, that's nothing compared to what they'll do to prevent dogmen from being proven to be in existence. So if you do wind up having footage that really is impressive, if you put it out there for public consumption, your problems have just started. So yeah, please keep that in mind.
Yeah, well, some of us are already under investigation by the Men in Black and everything else. There's more. Well, one of the three of us have witnessed a lot more than just Sasquatch and Dogmen, and for some odd reason, I have picked the unlucky card of running into every cryptid known to man and witnessing them in a firsthand manner. So I'm sure I'm on somebody's watch list because I've talked about my Mothman encounter. I've talked about the Bigfoot encounters, the multiple ones, the skinwalker that likes to follow me around. I talk about that one constantly to everybody.
Well, yeah, you can talk about these guys ad nauseum, but if you have really impressive evidence, such as video footage, that's totally different. I mean, who talks about Dogmen more than I do? No one does. But I don't have any trouble because I don't put evidence out there for public consumption that is across the line of what the government's going to allow. So, yeah, it's all about the evidence. If you can prove their existence, that's one thing, but they'll tell you. They've contacted people before who crossed the line, and they've told them, look, you can talk about these guys all you want, but just don't do that.
Well, if we got really good footage, we'd probably just share it with other people that are into this. I don't think we go full throw it out there, because I mean, if we go, okay, like our paranormal groups, we don't fake anything, and we don't put anything out there that's just to hashtag not Zach Baggins.
There, I was waiting for it.
Yeah, we don't fake our stuff, and we know that if we've got like a Sasquatch that walks out 5 feet in front of us, say we're sitting in a trail having a barbecue, and it strolls out of the woods, sits down in front of us, and goes, "Hey man, like I'll take a burger too." We put that footage out, and we're going to get 100 people who are going to be like, "Oh, okay, this is good proof," but we're going to get 2,000 people that are going to just cut us down, tear us apart. Same with the Dogman footage. If we have a camera up and we have a dogman walk across, say, look at it, part its hair a little bit. Again, we'd rather take that to people who study it, who look into it, who have a vested interest, and be like, hey, listen, this is the footage we got. What do you think? Because, we really have built our reputations on not hoaxing anything, not faking anything. And we don't want to have that encounter if we'd rather put that out to other people in the study, in the business, and say, hey, what do you think about this one? And go from there.
I see. Yeah, hopefully they won't steal that photo or the video footage and claim it to be their own and put it out there for the masses. That wouldn't be good.
Well, the government would be after them.
Yeah, might happen. You never know. Yeah, just less than a week ago, I found a group on Facebook that was using my copyrighted logo. The logo right there that you see on the screen, there's an illustration that has the Dogman facing your point of view, as well as another Dogman, the exact style you see right there, but it's a side view of it. And I paid an illustrator named Chris Chin a little over $700 about 7 years ago to create this. And I worked with him. I told him, okay, well, do this to the hands, do this to the legs, do this, do that to make it more anatomically correct. Well, yeah, I spent a little over $700 to have him create this illustration for me. Well, I see this Facebook group that's using my illustration. It's a copyrighted illustration image that they're using without my permission. So I contacted the admin of the group, and I was very, very pleasant and courteous, asking them to please take it down because, I paid an illustrator over $700 years ago to create this for me. So please take it down. I haven't given anyone permission to use it. And I was the worst guy. I mean, yeah, it's just, whenever you're dealing with things like this, it can get messy pretty quick.
Yeah. So before we get out of here, we're going to put this out to the audience. If anybody has any questions, hang on, we do have one. Where did the Dogmen originate from?
Well, that's a good question there. I wish I could answer that for you, but I can't. I've got no way to know where they originated from. I mean, they might be flesh and blood creatures. They might be spiritual beings from the ether. It's really hard to say. And if I claim to know the answer to that question, I'd just be lying.
I think that would fall right along the line of where did Bigfoot come from? There are reasons why we look into it and why we study it. Vic, you want to give us your different websites? Hawk them a little bit, see what we can throw our people your way?
Sure. Yeah, to find Dogman Encounters website, like I said at the top of the show, please go to dogmenencounters.com. And if you want to visit one of my two Sasquatch podcast websites, one of those podcasts is called My Bigfoot Sighting. If you want to visit that website, the website for that podcast, please go to mybigfootsighting.com. And for my other Bigfoot podcast, which has been around since 2015, been airing weekly episodes for, that one's called Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio. To visit that website, please go to bigfooteyewitness.com. And then not too long ago, I started producing a paranormal themed podcast called My Paranormal Experience. To visit that podcast's website, please go to myparaex.com. myparaex.com. That podcast is on hiatus right now, but I'm not sure if or when I'm going to start producing more episodes, but that's really up in the air. But that's how you can find the websites for all the podcasts I produce.
Well, if you ever need paranormal guests, you got two of us here. We're licensed, registered paranormal investigators with 30 years of experience here.
Well, thank you. I'll keep that in mind.
And there's a copyright strike, but hey. All right, well, we got no more comments. We would like to thank Vic Cundiff for joining us tonight, teaching us a little bit about it. Make sure everyone, you go to his websites, listen to the podcasts. They are fantastic. And I'm not saying that because I was on my Bigfoot experience, Bigfoot sighting. Thanks, everybody. Remember, this was season 2, episode 19. We got one more episode in the season. That is next Sunday. And then we are on a 2-week break. Everybody, have a good one. We will see you all next week. Thank you again, Vic.